Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the cafe.
It did take a second to get synced up. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
We were sitting here like I was going the wrong way. I was trying to figure out how do we match either way.
But we both walked into the studio and immediately started stretching. Like, okay, here we go. Let's get ready. Like we're gonna be doing something super active, but no, we're just gonna be sitting in the chair
It's
talking.
like the episode of Karate Kid. Like we both walked in. It's like, all right, sweep the leg.
Yeah.
Exactly. A bunch of Mr. Miyagi moments that Olivia taught us over time to
Yes.
then come into the studio to be able to share. So, man. Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. We are not your normal beautiful faces, but beautiful faces nonetheless we are.
I'm Clayton Clemens.
And I'm Benjamin Lavis.
And we'll be hosting the cafe today. Olivia's out with Mutual of Omaha doing their advisory
In
council.
fact,
So
I think she's just in the Wild Kingdom fighting off animals.
I think so.
Yep.
That seems like a very Olivia role that they would just drop her in.
100%. They were like, hey, we let some tigers out. You're the only hope.
They're like, the bear's been a little bit angry lately. Can you go down there and just kind of bring him down a bit?
Figure that one out. We know you love to problem solve. Here's our problem. Give us a solution, please.
She just meows at it.
That would probably be at least, if not the first step, most certainly the one that would probably end up working.
There we go.
Well, good deal. Well, we're letting some people kind of get in. I know we were set to start right here at 10. I have many stories to share. I was telling Clayton, I was like, what do we want to do for the pre-cafe? And we were like listing off a couple of different items, and I landed on one that was like, so my wife, Emily, is an elementary school teacher down in Ashland, and she has consistently brought up to me that toys that we used to play with as kids are resurfacing. So the one that was most recently brought up was silly bands. And I don't know how many people are familiar with silly bands, but it was like little rubber bands that were made in a shape.
Yeah.
That were just a normal rubber band. It was really just a fancy rubber band.
I like vaguely remember these. Like I know of it as a thing, but I don't personally remember. We talked about that. I was like, that's my one. I don't remember having silly bands.
Oh, okay. I was the other option was like trying to figure out things that people did that we never got to go do. Like
envious of.
yeah,
I don't think I was envious of the silly bands though.
We didn't go to like Disney World or Disneyland until I was in like high school, and I did it for my marching band. So I don't remember, or it was like when I was 2. But okay, here's a whole other thing.
Like,
You
why?
have a child, so maybe you can offer some insight. Why do parents take small babies to very expensive things? Like, we're gonna remember that.
I don't know. I just had this very conversation with my wife last weekend because we're getting ready to go. We're doing Disney on Ice, but we're going to Wichita. And we're like, what else are we going to do in Wichita? We're like, we're going to go to Wichita.
Yeah,
Go to Disney on Ice.
I think that's top of the list.
I was like, I honestly don't know what else we'll do there. There's a couple zoos or something, so we might
That'd be cool.
play around. But we were like, because she really wants to take Aubrey to Disney World.
Yeah.
And I said, let's wait until she's like 5 or 6 at least, so she'll like fully remember going to Disney World as a kid. Because I'm like, that's a lot of money. I was like, you know what we could do is like Six Flags or something that's cheaper, closer to us.
I think that's a fair middle ground, especially for like you want to offer the magic, while they're young. But yeah, we did like a full Disney cruise, and apparently there was like I was vibing with Tweety Bird, and like I don't remember any of that, so I don't know, but nonetheless. So, well, that's some of the fun here. I know we were letting some people get in here. We're starting here, not at the top of the hour, but 10:05. We'll call it good.
Snow and tell Olivia.
Yeah. Nobody
Guys,
tell
right on time.
Olivia. This is perfectly executed every single time. So there was one thing that everybody discussed last week about the election year. And there were some concerns about formularies and drug plans and kind of what was going to happen with a lot of that. And so Chaylin was actually listening back to our cafe, which first and foremost was frightening because now I have to be like, oh, Jalen's going to fact check me. So I have to really be on my stuff. Thus the phone that is ready to,
like, ready.
This is the truth because he sent this to me. So there was some conversation about, if formularies change, I have clients that, require this medication. Are they going to have to figure out a different way to pay for this? Is Part D just going to change all of a sudden and I'm not going to have, or they're not going to have those options? There are actually 6 classes that Part D have to include on their formularies, and that includes immunosuppressants. So if someone had a transplant recently, that medication has to be on that formulary. Antidepressants, antipsychotics, anticonvulsants, antiretrovirals, and anti-neoplastic. So those 6 classes are drugs that CMS has put into place because it's necessary to ensure that Medicare beneficiaries reliant upon these drugs would not be subsequently discouraged from enrolling in certain Part D plans, as well as to mitigate the risks and complications associated with any interruption of having those drugs available to them. So there was discussion last week. I wanted to bring that update to you guys that while your concern is warranted, because we don't know all the things that could change or happen throughout the year or with any of these formularies, you can be, a little bit rest assured that there are certain aspects in place to help with those 6 different classes. Maybe that's something I'll shoot out in the Facebook group afterwards, the resource that Jalen gave me. So if you guys are interested or have further questions, we can kind of carry that conversation over in the Facebook group, which is a great time to mention. If you're not a part of the Facebook group, join the Facebook group, because why not? What else you can use Facebook for? Friends and family? No.
To see Ben and Clayton post random memes? Yes.
You tell me what you would prefer. Well, good deal.
What we got today, Ben?
I don't know. Pre-cafe. Check.
Done. Step 1.
Step 2
is it's conference season. With Olivia being out at a conference, we thought it was pretty fitting. I was at one a couple weeks back. I've got one I'm going to on Thursday. We're like, let's just talk about like why agents should be going to conferences, other than just this is a fun break from my normal work day.
Yeah.
So we just kind of wanted to jump into why it was important, what you could get out of it, and how to like maximize your time at a conference.
What conference are you going to this Thursday?
And Thursday, I'll be in Des Moines, Iowa, doing the Medicare Sales University with our friends over at with Mike Roth's group, Senior Marketing SMIG.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. My apologies.
Mike Roth.
Mike Roth.
So I know a lot of people love Mike Roth. I love him. He's a great guy. So we did their conference in Kansas City a couple weeks back. And last year we were at Colorado with them. So it was really fun. I get to go talk about cancer insurance. So very excited.
That's awesome. So I guess any agents that may be tuning in, if you want or have the availability, that's on Thursday the 14th. Let us know. I think there's a separate registration link that is offering both virtual options and in person. So even if you can't make the trip, still worth getting registered and signed up. That way you can, listen to this guy talk about cancer insurance and implement that into your business.
For sure.
So, well, let's get into conferences. So why should agents be interested in the conference season whatsoever?
Yeah, so it kind of felt like this one was pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. You go to a conference for 2 things. You want to network and you want some kind of education out of it. Like, what are you really wanting to get out of these conferences outside of those 2 things?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some good swag usually.
Yep.
Like sometimes people be like, well, I want to go. There's some cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, all right. But the main 2 purposes are obviously networking and education purposes.
Yeah.
I think I take a lot most out of those conferences from learning different aspects.
Nice.
Because I don't want to say like I know everything, because I for sure don't. But like I've heard enough of one style, because we work at an FMO, we work here. where we're learning from our kind of teachers or our mentors.
Yeah, very true.
And then to go outside of that and learn from maybe a different angle is always super helpful. So like, I don't want to ever say like any of these are like too entry level. Yeah. Because like what we're doing at the Medicare Sales University is like would really help a new agent. Yeah. But it'll really help an agent that's been in the market doing it one way for a while and hearing a different angle and the kind of a different take.
I completely agree. I think there's a lot to be said. Like, yes, to some extent, like a Medicare basic level course may not provide something or what you got out of it initially. But I think there's a lot of good that comes out of attending those still, because one, it solidifies your foundation, solidifies your basics. Things that you know is even better to know that you know it. Yes. Like just the confidence almost.
Such a Ben way to say that, but it's so beautiful at the same time. It's like, the mo you know that you know it now.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's write that down somewhere, put it on like a plaque that's on the beach background, and it's just like, the mo you know is the mo that you know now mo.
Now you know mo.
Yeah. Say that 10 times fast. But anyway, just like the foundations being solidified is really, really important. So it sounds like you take away a lot of the educational side of conferences and either strengthening what you know or broadening into a different spot that you don't know, which is really interesting because when I go to events or conferences, I am more drawn to the networking side. I would much rather learn about other people that are attending, why they're attending, have the opportunity to see like, hey, how can I scratch your back? And, consequently, how can you scratch mine? Like, that's kind of partly what networking is looking for business partners, looking for strategic partners, figuring out people, hey, I can't ever remember the phrase, but it's something along the line or in the tune of, going alone, you can only make it so far, but if you have somebody else, you go twice as far. And so having kind of that accountability partner, someone who's in a similar space, someone who may bring up a point, in a way, the networking side can lead to the educational, because they have different experience, maybe have been to different conferences where they learn something else and can share that. So it's interesting that you gravitate more towards the educational side. And I gravitate more towards the networking. So.
Well, I think anyone that knows me knows like I'm gonna talk. Like I can't help myself. I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna do all these different, just like I'm a people person at the end of the day. Like I will go talk to everybody and try to learn everything about them. But from what I take away from the networking, exactly that too is looking for those kind of how can I help you moments, even if it's something where, like at this other event, we're at another FMO's conference. So I'm not looking to pull them in to work with us. I'm just like, you're here, you want to learn. How can I help you learn? Like I want to make the most out of your time here. I'm here, you're here. Let's just like kind of get the most out of this. So, but like each conference then has its own purpose or why that you want to go to that conference, which is our next guy.
Well, it's even more so like picking the different conferences. Like I wanted to touch on real quick as we're going through like why conferences. Yes, networking, education. I mean, also don't set aside like there is benefiting just getting out of the office. Like getting out of that routine sometimes can be really beneficial. It brings some creative flow. But I think the big key is, and I think we're going to touch about it in this next slide, is making sure you have an action plan when you're going to these conferences. And so I think we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we can, go ahead and step into like, which conferences are deserving of my time, because time is such a valuable asset.
And I really think the top two here, the topics and speakers, are like mostly going to be why you pick a conference. Is there an overarching topic that you want to hear about? Or is there a specific speaker that's talking on a specific topic that you want to? Like Chalon. Chalon's at some of these conferences talking about some very important stuff with compliance or different bills or just how Medicare can look in the coming years due to these changes. So like people seek out listening to Chalon talk. I know I seek him out just in the office.
Me too.
So seeing him like it's either Medicare Con or Medicarians. Yep. He might be speaking of both.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he is a valuable asset and
but
be
like
used either way.
People can see Chalen's name and be like, okay, yeah, I want to hear what he's got to say.
Yeah.
Dan Mangus has that similar effect
100%.
of like you see his name, you're like, cool, yep, I want to go hear what he has to say.
100%.
So that's something that we look at is like who's speaking at these events, but the topics can be just as important because of like we talked about before. It's like the different angles of hearing a topic that you might feel familiar with. Like I talk about cancer insurance at almost anywhere I ever go, but like that is the topic that I'm good at talking about. But there's a few other people that's going to be on the panel with me that I love to hear other sides of those. So it's like, okay, so again, it just keeps them back to different takes on a different topic.
Yeah.
Or it could be a brand new topic to you and you're like, you know what, I really need to get into, let's say, annuity business.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that person's going to be there talking about annuities. I should go and listen to what they have to say on that.
I think it's an interesting aspect too. Like there is part of how you should maybe view these conferences is almost like an in-person continuing education.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I know some conferences I think maybe even offer continuing education. So if you need additional hours, a conference is a great way to maybe try to plug that in as well. But a lot of the continuing education courses that I've seen or have been advising agents take a look at is find something that's interesting. Find something that you haven't done. There are some really, really interesting courses available to agents as a whole that you would not have thought, or at least maybe I wouldn't have thought to take a look at. I think there was one just like senior behavior or like consumer behavior, but specifically on the senior side. So that helps a lot with like the marketing aspects. There was just like a bunch of just really take some time, plug into, we recommend WebCE, just plug in your like your state's requirements within WebCE and just find some random course that'll, one, be used towards your continuing education credits that you need, but two, like broaden your knowledge, broaden your wisdom. And I think that's kind of what you're mentioning here, like these topics, these speakers, they're a great way to kind of plug in, obviously have a good time at a conference, but at the end of the day, the whole goal is to have taken something away from that conference. That way you can change your business, change your style. I actually do like the discussion style brought up here too. Yeah. I think it says a lot. Some people, this more pertains, I think, to how you learn.
Exactly.
If you know you're not going to be able to hold yourself accountable to a virtual conference because you're going to want to change the laundry, make sure that the dishwasher's unloaded, the dog's barking, so they need to go outside. And next thing you know, they've skipped over 1 to 2 topics that could have been beneficial for you. So be honest and trust yourself and be honest with yourself. If it's a style that you don't think will capture your attention, and it's okay to say that and be self-aware enough of that. I think that says a lot too, and should lead to a really positive time with your conferences as well.
Yeah, this kind of led me back to my thought process was very similar of like, how do you learn? And it led me back to my time at Mizzou. Where I was sitting in an auditorium of 500 people, having one person speak at me for a while.
Yeah.
And I said, this is very, very boring. I cannot handle this.
Yeah.
And I left. So that's kind of where I was thinking. I was like, those necessarily aren't the conferences for me, of where it's just a speaker talking with you for an hour. I'm like, I don't learn that way. My brain gets ADD and then I'm elsewhere and just like looking at something at the wall over there. And like, that's just who I am. Yeah. Where I like the discussion style or like a panel style, where there's a lot of back and forth with the audience or like with the people on the panel going back and forth 100%. Talking. Like that engages me, like the podcast style or like the conversation style. It just keeps me hooked where I know I'm going to get a lot more out of it versus 100%. A speaker. And as much as that hurts me sometimes, because I know like that one person talking is very good and I need to listen.
Right.
But my brain says, yeah, but did you see that on the wall?
We walked past a burger stand, and that burger stand might be calling my name about halfway through that presentation.
And some people might not have that struggle, but like I really want to go back to that burger stand.
Yeah, no, that's how I am too. Like I hated the lecture style at Mizzou as well. And weirdly enough, like
shots at Mizzou with this podcast.
No,
not what we were ready for today.
You guys taught us so much about how we learn. It just wasn't the way you guys offered all the time. But like when I was at college, was the second half of my college career was thrown into online only because of the pandemic.
God, you're so much younger than me. Anyway,
but so. It was interesting because I sat in the front of the class. I took as much notes as I could. I hand wrote them. Like I did everything I could to engage with that style. And I learned so much more in the last 2 years of my college career virtual than I would have ever done had I continued in person. So, I'm a fan of the virtual style. And I think it's just, be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Find the ways, not only the speakers and the topics, but how are you going to consume that knowledge? And I think the next slide even talks.
Real quick, that brought up a really good thought process because the classes I did like at Mizzou, because there was some good times there. I loved it.
Always.
Were the smaller classroom settings.
Yeah.
I had a few of those classes that were, 20 people in there. I had one that was like 6, 7 people. Yep. Super weird.
Yeah.
But like having those smaller settings, so maybe that's something to consider as well. Is like the event size. Like, is there going to be a few hundred people or like less than 100? Yeah. Like just kind of feeling out what that event will look like.
100%.
Maybe something else to consider.
That's a good point too. I think the size, not only sometimes people look at the size can be distracting. Can also speak to some maybe also the validity of it. Mm-hmm. If you have a lot of people showing up, is it a really good conference or did they just do a really good job of marketing it?
Is it going to be real fun?
Exactly. So just keep all these things in mind. Find the ones that kind of fit your guys' needs, the certain things that you hear the things that we discussed, the topic, speakers, discussion style. Location is also a pretty big one unless you're willing to pick up and go wherever. Just some things that I think are standard basics, but I figured I'd also throw in there. Cost is another big thing. A lot of this, you can justify the cost, especially if you bring something home and tie it to your business moving forward, which kind of brings us to the next topic of optimizing your time. We talked about how time is a very valuable resource here when it comes to you as an agent, you as an agency owner, whatever it may be, your time is the one asset that you can never have more of. It is a finite resource, so it's very, very valuable. I'll let Clayton kind of speak to the 70-30 rule because I think you implement this very, very well when you're at conferences. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, 70-30 rule. This is something that I think subconsciously is something I've kind of tried to implement. But to hear it spoken out, like Chalon was like, hey, like 70-30, this is what you should be doing at a conference. Because he goes to a lot of them. He talked to me about these. And I was like, like that is right. Like I want to make sure I catch up with my friends or people I've met at other conferences. But you got to take a lot of time to meet those new vendors, meet the new carriers you haven't 100%. Talked to, other agents that you haven't talked to before. So really breaking down your time into 30% of it, catching up with old friends, and 70% of it looking at new people, talking with new folks. And obviously this is outside of the time the speakers are going.
Right.
But, that's something where it's like, yeah, I love, you got your table, you sit with your friends, you sit with the people and then you kind of talk for a bit, then you kind of break apart.
Yep.
And like just trying to make sure you're organizing your time in that general fashion will help you get a lot more out of it because then you get more of the networking, you 100%. Get more of that education. Versus just if me and Ben sat together at every conference and we never talked to anyone else, I would just know more about Ben, which is great, love him. But I'm all right. But to get out there and me and Ben go our separate ways and then come back together and learn some more. Ben's gone. He's ran out the door. To learn more about other agents together And then we could come back and be like, oh, I spoke to this guy who had this thing. And
crazy story.
This. And then we can bring those experiences back together with the people we're comfortable, more familiar with.
100%.
I think that's where you can get the most out of a conference.
You can also view, it doesn't always have to be 70-30 of just the allotted scheduled time.
Yeah.
If it's a out-of-town experience or out-of-state, whatever it may be, there's going to be downtime to some extent after speakers, after scheduled events, after panels, after classrooms, however this the event is scheduled.
Yeah.
You're going to have time where, hey, let's go get dinner. Let's get dinner with a new carrier or a new partnership that we're trying to form. It's not just the scheduled time that you need to be thinking about. You can allocate certain meals is a really good one. I know Chalon was even mentioning like someone that he was speaking with was getting up really early to go fishing at the conference location because it was a state that they had never fished in. And I think he had even brought 2 fishing poles because
he doesn't go anywhere without a couple.
Exactly. In case one breaks, and then you have another backup. Yeah, exactly. But those are really interesting ways. That's a whole other time allotment that you either would have been sleeping, or doing something that, while is necessary for life, like doesn't always maybe add or take away from the conference experience. So. Just some of the things that we were talking about. The 70-30 rule doesn't always apply to just the allotted time that you may be at the hotel conference room or conference center or event center. And then you mentioned here like the 72 hours to act, and I think I know where you're leading to this.
Yeah.
You should be able to take away certain items, or if you're calling upon different strategic partners, anything after the 72-hour mark will likely just not happen.
Right.
You have that finite set of time that it's either important enough or, at least in this instance, has happened soon enough that you are actually either eager to do it or it'll actually get done. Anything past the 72 hours, if you wait that long, it either wasn't important, doesn't need your attention, or, it's... Yeah. You just let fall through the cracks. Truth of the nature.
Because you invested the time to be there to learn something new. And now if you don't take that information and do something with it, you didn't really do anything at that conference. That's going to be the most important thing at any of these is I've heard a couple people say like find a nugget or two at these conferences and act on those. Yeah. You don't have to act on every single thing that you've learned. 100%. Some of that can just be stored. Yeah. But you do need to act on something.
Yeah.
To get the kind of return of investment of these different conferences.
Yeah, I think that brings up a really good point. I think some people think that they have to come back from one of these conferences with a whole new business model and a whole new strategy. You really don't. Right. It's find the 1 or 2 things that you either were super passionate about, really took away from either the speaker or the topic itself, and just latch onto it. Yeah. I guarantee that if you grab onto one of those nuggets and actually hold on to that throughout the end of the conference, see how other topics apply to that nugget, and then go home and actually do something with it, you'll find you enjoyed the conference time so much more because you see how it affected your business.
Right.
Instead of just, oh, do you remember that time that we did that one thing? Yeah, that was cool. Be like, no, like now look at my agency. Like I applied, adding cancer insurance to my, my selling process. And now not only have I helped 300 clients now be able to protect themselves from, cancer, a cancer diagnosis, but also like, now my agency has more funds to dedicate to something else, a client appreciation event. A lot of this stuff, yes, you're educating yourself. Yes, you're getting out of the office. You're networking. You're the whole 9 yards. But a lot of that can stem into other vital parts of your agency. Marketing can come from it with an increased funds because of how you decided to do something different. You implement a new system or strategy and it reduces your costs so that way you have a higher threshold of profit, that way you can dedicate that those resources somewhere else. So it's not one dimensional. Take something away and really look at it, because from different perspectives from everywhere, you'll see that one nugget can have a very multifaceted effect on both you and your business moving forward.
For sure. You said that beautifully.
There's a couple extra words that I probably could have eliminated, but there's probably a conference I can visit on something like that.
I have one. The few words do trick. What do now?
Exactly. Yeah. I need to keep revisiting those notes. I need to grab one nugget.
Yeah, from my few word do trick seminar. But no, I think that's the most important things that you guys could be doing at these conferences. If you guys have something that you specifically try to take away from those, we'd love to see them on the Facebook page, comments. Or just be thinking about it, like think about what you want to do when you go to a conference. Like, do you got tickets to go to something already? Why'd you do that?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Like, just kind of walk yourself through that process so you're more prepared when you go there to what I need to pull away from this.
I like to challenge the viewers of the cafe. Like, if you are going to a conference, take some time before you leave and see if you can write down one thing you'd like to take away from the conference and then follow through with that. But furthermore, as just the cafe community group, if you are going to a conference, we would love to see a photo of that in the Facebook group, especially if you find another cafe member. Like, see if you guys can find each other at those conferences. I know you guys are multiplying by the day. See if you can find some. Maybe we'll figure out if we can do like some type of pin or something. Cool. That way all the agents could have mug. Some type of pin. Yeah, a little mug or something. All right. See, creative juices are flowing. I'll figure out if we can do something.
And we have 72-hour sack. Yeah. Go.
That's just this week.
Look, at least it's not 24. Was that Jack Bauer? You got 24-hour stacked on this.
I think you're right. Yeah. Like Saw, I want to play a game. You have 3 hours to do some impossible tasks. So, well, good deal. Well, I had to take away the text line halfway through because I remembered we didn't have that number. So if you texted that, here, we'll throw it back on there. We do this every single time. If you just want to text Olivia while she's at Mutual of Omaha, tell her all the cool things that you like about Mutual of Omaha, and she can relay that to the people that she's speaking with. Or if you just want to say hi, you can do that too. Tell her that we did a great job and we were on time and the whole 9 yards. Or you can be truthful and tell her that we were a couple minutes behind and that
happens.
It happens. Life happens. Nonetheless, conference season. Takeaways. Find the ones you want to go to. Take something away from it. Apply it to your business. You have 72 hours. I'll go blare through those ones real quick. Make sure you're network educating. Mm-hmm. Nailed that. Networking and educating yourself. Find those conferences based off of topics, speakers, or discussion style. Location and cost are where others some kind of honorable mentions. And then take away that 70-30 rule. Make sure you're spending time with people you don't normally act with, but catch up with the people that you do see at those conferences. Obviously, you'll probably see them at the next one. It's best not to anger them. And then anything you take away from a conference, just try to put into system within 3 days after that conference, or else you may not see that return of investment as much. So,
for sure.
That being said, I think that brings our conference season to an end. You can find your gift bags to your left. But now is a really good time. I know we talked briefly about challenging yourself with some of these conferences you're already going to. Try to find other cafe members. So if you're going to go somewhere, shoot a message in there. Say, hey, is anybody else going to this event? We would love to see that. Take a picture while you're there. We would also love maybe what conferences are you guys going to? Maybe we can try to visit you guys while we're there, or you guys are there too. So these are all information and pieces of nuggets that we would like to grab onto. But in the meantime, I think it's time now to do the thing.
Yes. So, in the meantime, Ben, you say the first part, because I never remember it.
Have fun.
Make money.
And give impeccable service. We'll see you guys on the next one.
I was going to start Papa John's if we do it.
Oh. Better ingredients. Better pizza.
See you next
Medicare
week.
Cafe.